The word or term stuff has several meanings and can be used generically to describe nearly anything tangible or intangible. The Bible doesn't use this modern term but actually has a lot to say about it. We use this term interchangeably to identify important and unimportant things. So what might the Bible say about things, specifically our things that we value? For the purposes of this presentation, we want to focus on the things we think are ours, things that we think we rightfully own. Question: aren't all the things God has given us ours to keep and use to our benefit? Didn't He give us dominion over creation and, in addition, wants us to have an abundant life? I'm pretty sure most people feel this way. Are they wrong? Psalm 24 verse 1 states, "The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world, and they that dwell therein." So how much is ours? How much do humans own?
But didn't God give man dominion over everything?
God did give man dominion over his creatures on earth, but this word has been grossly taken out of context with many. It doesn't mean man could transgress any of God's commandments and have a type of rulership over others that belongs solely to God. This misunderstanding of what we own, as opposed to what God owns, makes fertile ground on which Satan can and has tempted everyone, starting with our first parents, Adam and Eve. Moving on to Eve presenting the forbidden fruit, Adam could not envision himself without the most precious gift God had given him. Listen to how the pen of inspiration puts it. He understood the high destiny open to the human race should they remain faithful to God. Yet all these blessings were lost sight of in the fear of losing that one gift which in his eyes outvalued every other. Love, gratitude, loyalty to the Creator, all were overborne by love to Eve. She was a part of himself, and he could not endure the thought of separation. I realize that many, if not most women, see this as a romantic gesture that should be valued and expected of any man towards his woman. But we see the consequences of this disobedience and are horrified at the results, death. God provided a way of escape if he would have taken it, but he didn't. Speaking of Adam, he did not realize that the same infinite power who had from the dust of the earth created him, a living, beautiful form, and had in love given him a companion, could supply her place. He resolved to share her fate. If she must die, he would die with her. After all, he reasoned, might not the words of the wise serpent be true? Eve was before him, as beautiful and apparently as innocent as before this act of disobedience. She expressed greater love for him than before. No sign of death appeared in her, and he decided to brave the consequences. He seized the fruit and quickly ate. So the question is, did Adam own the gift of God and Eve, and himself for that matter, to do as he pleased? What is the correct use of God's gifts? Interestingly, we can skip to another story to find the answer. Speaking of Samson, inspiration says, just as he was entering upon manhood, the time when he must execute his divine mission, the time above all others when he should have been true to God, Samson connected himself with the enemies of Israel. He did not ask whether he could better glorify God when united with the object of his choice, or whether he was placing himself in a position where he could not fulfill the purpose to be accomplished by his life. To all who seek first to honor him, God has promised wisdom, but there is no promise to those who are bent upon self-pleasing. Yes, even though God gives us special things, talents, resources, wisdom, knowledge, etc., we cannot use them as we please for our purposes. As previously mentioned, when we subconsciously think God does not own everything, and that we own something, especially our bodies, gives Satan carte blanche to do what he pleases with us. Revelation 12 verse 11 states, "And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony. And they loved not their lives unto the death." Everyone that would be saved learns and accepts the fact that they own nothing of this world's goods, yes, not even their own bodies. However, it is right to say, we own our sins, because God did not give them to us, and has nothing to do with sin. Sin is consumed in his presence. If it wasn't for the blood or life of Christ, all humans would cease to exist. More on that later. Satan knows all too well how much we value temporal things in our lives. This is why he immediately answered God's question found in the first chapter of Job. Have you considered my servant Job? Does Job fear you for nothing? Have you not made a hedge about him, and about his house, and about all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. But put forth your hand now, and touch all that he hath, and he will curse you to your face. The test was administered, and fortunately Job did not lose his integrity, just as God had predicted. Does God know who loves him and will stay true though the heavens fall? Yes, he does. Let's skip again all the way down to Christ's crucifixion, where Jesus hangs between two thieves. The thief that was concerned with his temporal needs will not see God in paradise. Why? Was it because he was not a better thief than the other thief? No, not at all. The difference was in stuff, specifically where his heart was concerning stuff. The thief on the left said, "If thou be Christ, save thyself and us." This kind of person is like Esau, trading his inheritance for lentils, temporal here and now stuff. They don't value God, they only value what he can bless them with, temporally. God is not fooled by this, putting things before him. He knows who loves him for him first and foremost. One of Satan's most powerful temptations involves stuff, the things of this world. He tempted Jesus in the wilderness to bow to him in reward for stuff, specifically the wealth of this world. It was not his to give, but from his position he thought Jesus might fall for the scam. Another similar satanic scam was perpetrated on the Israelites in Moses' day. Korah, Dathan, and Abiram needed a little more impetus to besmirch Moses' and Aaron's character and leadership, so they resorted to stuff. Listen how they did it, under Satan's guidance of course. But many were not ready to accept Korah's accusations against Moses. The memory of his patient, self-sacrificing labors came up before them, and conscience was disturbed. It was therefore necessary to assign some selfish motive for his deep interest for Israel, and the old charge was reiterated that he had led them out to perish in the wilderness, that he might seize upon their possessions. There are many other Bible stories that can prove this point, like the rich young ruler, Ananias, and Sapphira, Zacchaeus, Judas, and others, but let's skip down to our day. Will God give us the same test, or maybe we are so righteous that he doesn't need to? I submit to you that we had a pop quiz concerning this point. The COVID debacle exposed what was in people's hearts, and little to no difference could be seen between Christian and non-Christian. Everyone's stuff was threatened, and if you were to ask them if they handled it the way they should have, most would say yes, except that they should have been more forceful. I thought the response from Christians would have been like Christ. Was Christ forceful when they came to crucify him? Did he respond like Peter with violence? Question: what will you do when you cannot buy or sell? So far we have only talked about the word stuff in our title. Now it's time for the puff. If you recall all the stories mentioned and even the ones we didn't, you will see that the blessings and advantages people were expecting actually evaporated sooner or later in their experience. That which they thought would be the payoff for disobedience vanished like a vapor before them. Samson his strength, Adam and Eve lost their original home, all but 2 of the Israelites perished in the wilderness over the age of 20, Ananias and Sapphira lost their lives, and on and on. Another notable example comes from Seventh-day Adventists in 1888, when they cherished their righteousness, their opinion, aka stuff, over the righteousness of Christ. What did they lose? The soon coming of Christ. Ellen White stated Jesus would have come then, but because of their insubordination, we would have to spend many more years, as did the children of Israel. Listen to how inspiration puts it. Self-confidence is an offense to God. The members of the family above will not be independent. They will not think their ideas are infallible and think every other man's opinion inferior to their own. All those who cherish this spirit will have to be converted before they can become members of the royal family, for their egotism, their depreciation of others, who are far more worthy in the sight of God than they are themselves, would create disturbance in heaven. Among the children of God, there must be perfect unity, heart blending with heart. All pomposity, all narrow selfishness, must be uprooted from the soul. Self must be crucified in order that Jesus may mold and fashion the character. To be fair, God gave and still gives us stuff. Nothing He provides is evil, but if we are selfish, we make it useful for evil. That's when things go puff. We don't want our lives going puff, like up in smoke. We want to spend eternity with the one who gave us the good stuff.